Y'all, I got a moment I need you to listen for. Not a warning sign, not something obvious. I mean a moment that, when it happens, doesn't feel like anything at all. And that's the problem. Because I'm about to tell you a story that changed how I think about getting pushed out of a job. And it only makes sense if you understand this one thing first. The moment that costs you your position usually doesn't look like a mistake when it happens. It looks normal. A little while back, I was on the phone with a friend of mine, Kwame, and the way he started the call told me everything before he even explained it. I don't know what I did, but something's off. Not panicked, not emotional, just trying to make sense of something that didn't have a clear starting point. I've known Kwame since college. He's the kind of person you can count on, not in a flashy way, just in the way that matters. Calls you back, shows up when he said he would, does what he says he's going to do. He'd been at his company for about 2 years, project coordinator role at a construction management firm in Atlanta, the kind of mid-size operation where everybody knows everybody and your reputation travels fast in both directions. Solid performer. Not the loudest guy in the room, but the kind of person managers don't worry about. Work gets done, no drama, no surprises. He wasn't pushing hard for promotion, wasn't angling for more scope, wasn't making noise about where he wanted to be in 2 years. He was doing what everyone tells you to do when you're early in your career at a place you actually like. Keep your head down, do good work, build the relationships, let the track record speak. He believed in that approach, and for 2 years, everything suggested it was working. Up until recently, because over the last few weeks, things had started shifting. His manager, guy named Hendricks, mid-40s, been at the firm about 8 years, had been getting shorter with him, not hostile, just shorter. Less eye contact in the hallway. The kind of small adjustments you can't point to, but you can feel the shape of. Meetings Kwame used to be part of started happening without him. Projects he would have naturally been looped into, he was hearing about after the fact. His one-on-ones with Hendricks kept getting moved. First once, then twice, then the one in March that just disappeared entirely. No reschedule, no note. Just gone. Nothing official, nothing you could point to and say, that's the problem. Just different. And if you've ever been in that position, you already know how it feels. Because your first instinct isn't to look back, it's to fix it. Work harder, speak up more, be more visible, do something to correct whatever's going wrong right now. That's exactly what Kwame was doing. He'd been at it for 6 weeks, and it wasn't working. So he asked me, what am I doing wrong right now? And I said, that's not the question. He went quiet, so I said, what did you do before this started? Because here's what I've learned about how this actually works. By the time you feel the shift, you're already late. That's not when it starts. That's when it shows up. The silence, the distance, the weird energy in meetings, that's the weather report. The storm already came. You're standing in the rain looking at a forecast that was accurate 6 weeks ago. The signs everybody talks about, the shorter replies, the meeting you're not on anymore, the feedback that used to be specific and now isn't, those are real. I'm not saying they're not real, but by the time you're reading them, you're correcting the wrong problem. You're trying to fix the present when the decision was made in the past. The question isn't what's happening right now. The question is, when did this actually start? So I let Kwame think, and after a while he said, 3 months ago, that would have been around February. Walk me through February. He paused. It was normal. We had the quarterly review. I had my one-on-one with Hendricks, conference room on the second floor, the one with the broken AC unit that's been broken for 3 years. Everyone just accepts it at this point. We talked about Q2. He asked about a new project coming up. Something bigger than what I was handling. More scope, a longer timeline, a few more people to coordinate. And another pause. I told him I'd think about it. That was it. No argument, no missed deadline, no attitude problem, no mistake. Just, I'll think about it. And in Kwame's head, that meant, let me be responsible. Let me not rush into something I'm not sure about. Let me give you a real answer instead of just saying yes to everything. In Hendrix's head, that same moment got read completely differently. Not ready, not eager, not someone you build towards something bigger. And nothing changed that day. No correction, no feedback, no warning. The meeting ended like every other meeting. Hendricks said something about following up. Kwame went back to his desk and sent a follow-up email. Thorough, professional, the kind of email Kwame always sends. He laid out his thinking, said he wanted to make sure he understood the scope before committing, asked 2 clarifying questions. It was a good email, the kind of email that should build trust. And Hendricks read it, probably appreciated it. And it didn't matter at all, because the read had already formed. He didn't get pushed out when things got weird. He got labeled when he said something that felt completely normal at the time, and nobody told him it mattered. I sat with that for a second on the phone, and I think Kwame did too. Neither of us said anything for a beat, because there's a specific kind of quiet that comes over a conversation when something clicks into place that you can't unclick. When the thing that was confusing suddenly has a shape, and the shape is worse than the confusion was. Now, I want to sit with that for a second, because I'll think about it is not a red flag. In a healthy dynamic, I'll think about it is exactly what you're supposed to say when someone offers you more responsibility. It signals judgment. It signals self-awareness. It signals that you're not someone who just says yes to everything without considering what you're agreeing to. And I hate that I have to say what comes next. But here's the thing about the game. The game doesn't always reward the right answer. Sometimes it rewards the answer that confirms what the person asking it needed to believe about you. Hendricks needed to believe that Kwame was ready to be invested in. That offer, the bigger project, the expanded scope, was a read. Not a test exactly, but a read. And I'll think about it. Delivered in a room where the manager was already deciding how much runway to give him, read as hesitation, as ambivalence, as maybe not the person to bet on right now. Was Hendricks wrong? Probably. But it doesn't matter that he was wrong. What matters is that the read happened. And once that read happened, everything after it got filtered through it. Every interaction Kwame had with Hendricks for the next 3 months, his work, his communication, his presence in meetings, all of it got evaluated through the frame that had already formed. Good work confirmed he was competent. It didn't revise the read. The read was about something else. I keep turning this over and I haven't figured out how to feel about it yet. Because the thing that gets me is, Kwame did nothing wrong. He was being exactly the kind of employee every piece of career advice tells you to be. Thoughtful, measured, not impulsive. And the system still ran its logic on him anyway. That's not a comfort. That's not something you can fix with a different behavior next time. It's just real. And I think sitting with that discomfort without resolving it is actually part of the lesson. And that's what I mean when I say the tripwire doesn't look like anything. It's not a performance review. It's not a write-up. It's a moment of perception. One person reading another person in a way that didn't get corrected, in a direction that didn't get reversed. And by the time you feel it, it's been running for months. I got off the phone with Kwame and just sat there for a minute staring at my own calendar. Not even intentionally, just thinking. And then I started scrolling backward. One-on-ones, rescheduled meetings, projects that quietly shifted owners. Little moments I hadn't thought about twice when they happened because at the time, they didn't feel connected to anything. I stopped on one from maybe 4 months earlier, my own manager asking if I wanted to take lead on a vendor issue that was already halfway on fire. I remember laughing and saying something like, honestly, I got enough on my plate already. At the time, it felt normal, responsible even. Better to say that than overcommit and fail later. But sitting there after Kwame's call, I remember thinking, wait, what did he hear when I said that? Because managers don't always hear the sentence you meant. Sometimes they hear the sentence that confirms the read they were already forming. And once I started thinking about it that way, I couldn't stop. That's the part that bothered me most. Not that these moments happen, that most of us never even realize which moment it was. Y'all tell me if I'm reading this wrong, because I went looking after Kwame's call, trying to understand whether what I was seeing was a Kwame problem or a pattern. It's a pattern, and researchers who study how organizations actually work, not how they say they work, have a name for this territory. They call it impression management backlash. The finding is specific. Employees who express authentic behavior that misaligns with what a manager expects in a given moment receive lower evaluations going forward, even when the behavior itself was competent or even correct. Not because the behavior was wrong, because the expectation got violated. And then I found a Harvard Business Review piece. Researchers studying the gap between when managers make informal decisions about employees and when formal processes begin found consistently that the informal decision comes first, by weeks, sometimes months. I don't even know what to do with that because it means the PIP isn't when they decided. The moved one-on-ones aren't when they decided. The reduced scope isn't when they decided. All of that is just paperwork on a decision that was already made. The decision was made in a room, in a moment, in a sentence. And the person who said the sentence usually doesn't even know it happened. They go back to their desk and write a thorough follow-up email the way Kwame did. And none of it touches the thing that already moved. That's Kwame's February. That's the whole thing. Now, I already know what some of y'all are thinking. You're thinking, this sounds like you're saying I should never push back, never set limits, never give an honest answer. Basically just say yes to everything and become a robot to keep my job. And I hear that. I really do. Because if the tripwire can be anything, a boundary, a question, a moment of hesitation, then the logical conclusion is that the lesson is just shrink yourself. And I'm not saying that. That's not the lesson. Here's the actual lesson. You can do the thing. You can say, I'll think about it, when that's the honest answer. You can push back when something is wrong. You can ask the question that needed asking. I'm not telling you to stop being real. I'm telling you to know what you're doing when you do it. Because right now, most people push back and then spend 6 months wondering why the vibe changed, when the answer was always sitting in the moment they pushed. The difference between the people who navigate this and the people who get caught by it isn't compliance, it's awareness. It's knowing that these moments exist, that they're invisible while they're happening, and that you can find them if you know where to look. When something goes sideways at work, stop asking, what's happening now? Start asking, when did this actually start? That's the question that leads you to the moment. And the moment is where the real information lives. That's the whole shift, not a checklist, not 5 things to never say to your boss. One new question, when did this actually start? My granddad used to say something when he'd watch somebody get caught off guard by something that had been building for a long time. He'd shake his head and go, boy, the game don't punish the wrong moves near as much as it punishes the right ones at the wrong time. I used to think that was a general observation about life. Now I think it's specifically about this, about the February moment, about I'll think about it in a room where the wrong red was already forming. The move wasn't wrong. The timing is what mattered. And timing is the thing nobody teaches you. I didn't really understand that until I was watching Kwame, trying to figure out what he did wrong. And the answer was nothing. Nothing wrong, just real at the wrong moment, in a room where the wrong red had already started forming. Kwame is still at that job as far as I know. Things didn't dramatically fix themselves after our conversation. That's not how it works. The reed had already formed. What changed was that he stopped trying to correct the present and started paying attention to the moments as they happen. Not with paranoia, with the specific awareness that reeds are forming all the time, that some moments matter more than they appear to, and that when something shifts, you now know to look backward before you look forward. I think about that phone call sometimes, the way he sounded at the beginning, not panicked, just confused. That specific confusion of someone who'd been doing everything right by every standard they knew about and still felt the ground moving, who had no framework for what they were experiencing because the framework that would have explained it was never given to them. Not in the onboarding, not in the performance reviews, not in the advice from people who meant well. He didn't do anything wrong. He just did something real. And somewhere in this game, doing something real, giving the honest answer, taking the moment to think, instead of just saying yes, that costs. It costs even when it's right, even when you're correct, even when any reasonable person looking at the situation would say that was the right call. I sat with that for a long time after we hung up, still sit with it sometimes, because there's no clean resolution to it. You can't unread the room you didn't know you were being read in. You can't go back to February and say the other thing. All you can do is carry the knowledge forward, that these moments exist, that they're invisible while they're forming, and that when the ground starts moving, you now know where to look. The only difference between the people who see it coming and the people it blindsides is this: knowing that the moment exists, knowing it happened, and knowing that when the ground starts moving, the first thing you do is look back, not to assign blame, not to spiral, but to find the moment. Because once you find it, you stop correcting the wrong problem. And the next time a room is reading you, You'll feel it while it's happening instead of 3 months after. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever traced something that went wrong at work back to a specific moment that didn't feel like anything when it happened? A sentence you said, a question you asked, something you didn't say. I read every single one of these, and I already know some of y'all are going to find the moment when you go looking. And if you know someone who's in the middle of that confusion right now, working harder, being more visible, doing everything the advice says to do and still feeling the ground move, send this to them. Not as a warning, just so they know to ask the right question. Not, what am I doing wrong now? But when did this actually start? I'm Reggie. Y'all stay sharp out there.